So Charmaine, it's here we are, and we are talking about Breathe, the project that we just finished quite recently, and I guess it's just kind of really nice to be in the place where we are reflecting on what happened during the project, and as the two facilitators who delivered the programme and who worked with the participants and who engaged through this process. It's just really nice to be able to have an opportunity to reflect and to have a chat about what happened. But so it's good to see you.
Good to see you too, Carol. It's lovely to be back in this way talking about the project, because it takes a wee while for things to settle with you before you can kind of feel how everything went. So it's lovely to kind of come back and discuss this and have a wee chat about it all.
Great. So really thinking about Breathe as a project and how this has come into being. Breathe was a piece of writing, a presentation that Professor John Paul Lederach gave at the Four Corners Festival in Belfast in 2020. And it was in the time of lockdown, COVID restrictions, and when our breath was something that everybody was thinking about. We were very conscious of our breathing, and because of the restrictions certainly, and you know, the impact of COVID in people's lives, our breath really looked like and felt like something else. It was quite significant. And the theme for the festival that year was breathe, was breath. And so John Paul wrote this piece, and I have worked with him for some time, and when I heard the words, I just kind of felt, there's so much kind of visual, or there's so much kind of embodiment that could really happen through those words. So I asked him, would he allow me to kind of put together an idea that would become the project that has become Breathe. So through Community Arts Partnership, we were able to get some funding, and we worked with Forspring Intercultural group on the Springfield Road in West Belfast. And Forspring as a centre is a really interesting centre because it straddles a peace line. It's right beside a peace gate, and in an area which would be kind of termed in Belfast terms or Northern Irish terms as being the flashpoint area. But you know, Charmaine, we've both worked in Forspring before. I worked with the community groups there, so it seemed definitely kind of the natural place for us to go back to see if participants would be interested in doing this project. So that's really how it started off. It all started off. That's the background of Breathe.
Brilliant. Thanks, Carol. Yes, and I suppose then you invited me along to bring the dance element to the project. So along with your visual art skills, I kind of came along with the embodied or the movement aspect of the project, which was really exciting for me to work alongside yourself to bring John Paul's words to life in a visual and an embodied way, which is just fabulous. And in a sense, it was breathing life into my skill base in a different way as well, to kind of explore dance and using words as stimulus, and also the arts, and then bringing in a community group as well with their own thoughts and feelings and interests, and then using all of that together to create something in response to Breathe. So in a sense, it's quite profound in terms of even coming out of COVID and that idea of breathing collectively again. So there was a lot going on whenever you asked me to kind of, I didn't realise at the time the significance of breathing life back into us all, in a sense, through our body, through the arts, and using John Paul's words as a way to facilitate that. So yeah, it was brilliant. What a journey.
Yeah, the words were the real catalyst, and you know, the project was challenging. You know, this had not happened before. John Paul was curious and interested to see what we were going to do, as were we. as were the participants, because it's not happened before. He's not had artists, although he has written a lot about the arts in peace building, he's not had artists respond specifically to a piece of writing that he has done. So I guess we were all coming into this experience with lots of curiosity, with lots of not knowing how this is all going to go, and quite a bit of uncertainty, and it was quite a challenge, because the pieces were, or the words rather, are very inspiring, and they're so juicy, and there's so much to them that we could have gone off in many different tangents, you know, and still could go off in many, many different tangents, you know, because it feels that, in lots of ways, it feels that our project is finished, but the work isn't. So yeah, that's really how the project has come about being, and it was, John Paul was interested in the process throughout, and is still interested in the kind of the summing up of the work as well. So I guess in our chat, it's really about thinking what were the standout things for you or for me. What were the things that, as facilitators in this context, really caught our attention? What are, or maybe have been our curiosities, and what are just our reflections of this kind of quite different experience that we have had the opportunity to be able to facilitate and deliver.
I suppose just when you were chatting there, Carol, I was thinking about the word curiosity and then linking that to the word brave. And sometimes with the arts, we sometimes can become safe in our own skill base or what we do. And like every job, do you know what I mean? You just kind of do the same things every day that are familiar and safe to us. Where there was a sense of being brave, and by being brave, and then being brilliant. You know, that's the two words that I kind of was thinking about there. But the women that took part in this project were brave and brilliant, you know, and they really trusted us as well to guide them in that process. And you and I are very open that we were responding to John Paul's words, which are just gorgeous, as you said, and so expressive and so full of life. But we were really being led by the process as well. Like, of course, we planned the sessions, but we were definitely listening to the girls and kind of responding what was happening in the moment. Mm-hmm. And that is brave for both of us, and very brave for John Paul as well. Trust us with that. And for the girls, really and truthfully, it was that. And for me, it really stand out. So the being brave and being brilliant, particularly coming out of COVID, when we would maybe rather just go back to the way we were, because that, you know, COVID was so different for us. Whereas then we'd maybe think, oh gee, let's go back to the safe space that we normally are in. And we meet every Wednesday and we do whatever we do. We were asking the girls to step outside of that. And that was brave and fantastic. I also think the hybrid event that we had on the 1st of November, where we invited an audience into the space and took them through a workshop, really, exploring John Paul's words. So it was just the public came in, and we had the girls there as well, and we took them through that. I feel that event for me was a pivotal moment for us and the girls, you know, our participants within the group. I feel that from that moment on, something clicked or changed within the girls in terms of their self-expression towards John Paul's work. It was like as if they give themselves permission to really explore the words and to feel free through movement and then through the visual art to express themselves. Do you know what it is? We're asking the girls to express themselves in terms of his work, you know, giving people permission to say, well, how do you feel about this?
Oh yeah.
You know, how does your body feel about this? You know, if you were to draw a map, if you were to paint, how would that look like? So there was no roadmap as such. It was very much, and I think in Northern Ireland as well, and maybe women, we hold back our expression slightly, and we don't maybe express. So even all of that, the bravery of that, and for them, they really came alive. For me, it was like the breath of fresh air came right through them, and his words, and the way they expressed themselves after that was just really joyous and a lot more open and a lot more free, I feel. So yeah, brave and brilliant, and that hybrid event, that pivotal moment of change happening, you know, and really witnessing that change. And it's quite profound actually when you think of, you know, women expressing themselves in such a creative way. Like that is extraordinary, I think, you know.
Yeah, and when you say that, it reminds me of John Paul's word. You know, he says about when somethingness or nothingness becomes somethingness. You know, and yeah, I agree with you that event was a turning point, was a pivotal for our project. And just to kind of explain as well that workshop, the hybrid workshop, was sort of around week 6 of our 10-week workshops. So it wasn't halfway, but it was a wee bit further on. But yet the really lovely thing was that the ladies who were our core participants, because of their confidence, because they'd already had the few weeks with us beforehand, just 5 weeks with us before, 5-6 weeks, it meant when they came into that space, they were leading the way for the wider group to be able to kind of catch on to, right, this is what we're meant to do. And they were holding the confidence of the group. There was enough of them that helped give the bigger group a steer. You know, everybody felt maybe a little bit vulnerable, especially if they just come into the room that one night. But because there were some people there who were already, you know, moving, and that they looked as if they were a lot more confident. Maybe if they were here, they would say, "Well, we were confident at all."
Yeah.
But they helped to carry that, and it's funny then that it folded back out again. Beyond that session, that it folded back to the girls again. It folded back to the original participants.
And there's a sense of empowerment in that as well, you know, for them to see themselves as a facilitator, and, you know, like facilitating the group in terms of leading the way. And then, as you say, to lead that, then come back into our space, because then they started to really kind of lead and guide us in terms of where that went to, which is like that. There's something really glorious about that, and it is about empowering people as well to have a voice and to be seen and heard, I think, you know, because you know, sometimes people are like, oh no, I wouldn't do that, oh no, I'll not be doing that, I wouldn't. And then they were in the space and just doing it very effortlessly, you know, and that there's something very magical and brilliant about that, you know.
It's also the power of the group, you know. It's the power of the witnessed experience that if, you know, that people are doing that in the space, and it feels normal for us because we are in this space doing it. But there's also kind of just as we were talking, I kind of almost nearly have a sort of in my imagination, it's like a trickle of water starts, and then it becomes a stream, and then it flows and it gets bigger and it gets wider and it turns into a river. So it was like that with the girls, because we started with simple breath, you know. The requirement to be on a participant of the program was that you could breathe. So, you know, we started with breath, and it doesn't get any more basic than that.
Common shared experience, you know, the breath.
Yes, absolutely. And then that opening up into how we literally drew our breath, drew line. What does our breath look like? Some of those lines are quite almost staccato. Some of them are very fluid. You can see if people have respiratory issues, you know, from their drawings. Anyway, so we drew our breath, and then we took it into body movement, and then from body movement we went back to painting, and then we wrote our haiku. And so it was it's kind of one discipline led to another, as well as one level of interaction led to another. So yeah, it was allowing us as well, I suppose, as facilitators, to not hamper that, but to nurture it as it came along. And not predict. We were very fortunate that we declared at the start of this, we don't know where this is going to go. But but we know we're going to gather momentum, really. And we just asked our funders to allow us to have that freedom to be able to do that. And that doesn't happen all the time. So it was privileged to be able to have that opportunity.
Do you have a moment for you that stands out, or anything that would encapsulate the project, or when you think about it, is there something that comes to mind?
I kind of really honour the challenge that people took, and it wasn't for the faint-hearted for all of the reasons that we've described. And I think in this context of it, because the centre straddles the peace line, you kind of have that. It feels edgy. Really, everything about it was edgy, and that can either go one of two ways. That can scare some people off, or that can attract people into it.
It's an invitation for people to step outside their boundary, quite literally.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just need an invitation.
Yeah.
And I think there's something lovely about that. And the girls, we had the group and they danced basically at the gate. That's extraordinary. That is just phenomenal. I think one of the girls had mentioned, "Oh my God, do you realise where we're dancing? Or is this okay?" But she was able to do that, and that's okay. Oh, brilliant. So it is looking at it as an invitation, and not necessarily giving yourself permission, if it's okay for you to step outside your boundary. It is, it is safe to do that. We create as facilitators, we create that safe space.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was thinking about that over these last few days, and thinking about how when you and I were planning this, we didn't do any big plan on session 10. We're going to do this. We're going to go, and it was kind of, and I know when we've worked together before on a previous project, I had projected onto the Peace Gate. Now this was a different era as well. This would have been about maybe 15 years ago, and it did feel really risky doing that. I projected out of the back of a car with a cable out of somebody's house, electric cable. And we had chatted that over, and we said, we might dance on outside at the Peace Gate, but that we didn't really plan it, and it was because we were taking photographs as well for the film, and I think we just sort of said, well, sure, we'll just go outside. Yeah, we'll just go outside, and that's so for the participants to have been kind of agreed to do it, because we didn't consult them actually. We just said, right, we'll go outside and do maybe that's it. And they just said, right. So for them, we were really putting them on the edge there, where they were saying, I've not been through this gate ever before, and I'm going to the other side of the gate. Never name. I'm going to the other side. We're going to the other side of the gate, and we're going to dance in the street. No. And we're going to dance to Paul Brady's song, "The Island." So incredible. It was quite incredible.
Yeah, but it's amazing how we all just do it as well. Like nobody is, as I said before, it's an invitation. Like if somebody said, "I'm not doing that," no problem at all. Like we're very fluid with that. But it really is wonderful how we just go as a group. And in that space when we were dancing there, I'm not a facilitator, I just felt as one when we're dancing there.
Yeah.
We're dancing together as a group, in our duets, in our group together. I'm not Charmaine, the facilitator, I'm just Charmaine.
Yeah.
And we're a group of women expressing and exploring. And there's something lovely about that shared, I think John Paul mentioned that, that shared common ground, that space. And that's exactly what we were doing. That's like an embodiment of that. Just sharing and becoming one. The breath is one, the body is one. women as one, regardless of where we are or who we're from. You know, we're just in that space, regardless of our identities or the labels that we place on ourselves or society places on ourselves. In that moment, we are dancing together because we all have a body and we're expressing ourselves in that way.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think about the parallels of then that experience in the context of peace building. You know, and John Paul's written elsewhere about, you know, being curious, taking risks, paradoxical curiosity, you know, networking, and the power of relationships, which are the relationships, what you're saying there as well about the power of the group, and that kind of eye contact of even moving in between each other, and we're not bumping into each other, and even if we do, we bump off each other and then move again, whatever. But within the context of peace building, you know, and I know in the event on the 1st of November, John Paul spoke about humour, the use of humour, and when we were moving.
Playing. Did we talk about playing?
Yeah, and the importance of that, and by not being too serious, and how everybody, when they danced, they smiled.
Yes.
And when they smiled, then their bodies relaxed a bit more, and so is that kind of thing about how in peace building sometimes it's about the unpredictable thing. It's about the moment of saying the right thing, or the moment of making the kind gesture, or like the moment of doing something. You know what, this normally isn't what I do, but right now I'm going to do it because it feels right now. So yes,
because you couldn't have planned that as such. You know, if you'd have said to the ladies, like, in week whatever 7 we're going to dance here at, you know, Peace Line or whatever, I'm not sure, you know,
no,
I'm not sure how that would have went down.
No.
Yeah, so it is spontaneous, it is playful. But of course, you know, people are in a safe space to be able to do that. And I think that's important when you've nurtured those relationships, you know, over those like 10 weeks together. But there is that sense of play. And I think, like, it is amazing when you think of the context of peace building and you think how serious it is. And absolutely it is. I'm not taking away from it. But, you know, but that sense of play and curiosity is not evident. Like, it really isn't. You know, so it is, and it is a very brave person to invite that into the space and to see where that takes you. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the unpredictability is really essential. And let's just try this. Let's see where this goes. Let's see how this feels, and if it feels safe, if we don't go too far off tangent, you know, and trusting the group that if we do go off tangent, we bring it back in again. And so I just that whole side of things, I just loved the, you know, it slid in and out of those kind of peace building concepts as much as we slid between movement and visual art and word and breath and play and spontaneity, and we used our imaginations, and we kind of, you know, that phrase that people say in Northern Ireland, we go for ourselves, you know. We kind of put that sort of, we took the risks and said, right, we're going to give this a go, you know, and and I think that was brilliant. I think that was a really, you know, I just loved that. And I don't know how they can bottle that and use it elsewhere, but I think it is around believing in the moment, believing in right now, this is the thing that feels the right thing to do.
Believing in the power of play and the power of making and creating, you know, like in the arts, you know, sometimes they're maybe not even on the curriculum anymore in some like schools, but actually, like, look how they can sit alongside debate and negotiation and just offer something else. There is definitely, and that's even surprising to me, you know, in that context.
Yeah.
You know, John Paul made me look at the arts in a very different way and how they can be used very much in peace building, and what a wonderful tool to be able to use in that context. And knowing when to use it and not, of course.
Yeah.
But it is about teaching us to self-expression and to be spontaneous with that, and not to be so fearful. I think as a society, you know, there's a lot of fear within us all, and then with COVID as well, you've got all of that kind of fear, you know, and then that shuts us down. Whereas, you know, the arts sort of kind of maybe breathe life back into that again and say, well, actually, let's look, kind of navigate this fear, and how we can turn it into something else, you know, let bubbles underneath. You know, here, I think in society, that fear, you know, maybe not as much as it used to be, but there is an element of that. Whereas that project definitely allowed or gave space. I think give space, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, to try another path. You know, like in our mind, we have the same thoughts for years, and we create pathways, and we think we could never change that thought pattern, whatever it is. But actually, if you just tread a different path, your neurotransmitters can create another pathway, you know, so we can change, you know. So it is just about taking a different route or a different pathway down and exploring that to see what that looks like. And I think this project was very much about that, just trying a different path, going down a different route.
Yeah, and that brings back to your words of being brave and being brave and brilliant, like that. But I think, you know, very often when I work with people, I'm sure it's the same with you, particularly with movement, maybe more. Well, I can't say it. I'm sure it's for both of us. But people say, oh, you know, I'm not an artist. I couldn't do that. But this was not about. This was, you know, my kind of training. It would be low skill, high sensitivity. So this was really around thinking, this is achievable. This is enough expression and enough artistry that is required for us to be able to do this. It's not about saying, oh, we're going to do a massive, you know, big, you know, performance piece that's going to go on a stage in a, but the process that we were kind of following, as a facilitator, was leading people into discovery, really, and it wasn't about the big performance or the big exhibition gallery space at the end of it. It was about what were we making, you know. And if one person left that group, it wouldn't be the same, and if another person came into the group, it would change it entirely. So it was very much about that moment. And it couldn't, even if we probably tried to do it again, we probably couldn't do it again, because, you know, because you can't stand in the same place in the stream. The water keeps going past you, you know, it still keeps moving past. So we can't keep the same thing. It's different. Yeah.
I think that's fantastic, and I think that's really good from a facilitator's perspective as well. You know, rather than just repeating a workshop again and again, you know, which sometimes you can fall into a habit or a pattern of. You know, that is brilliant, that everything is always changing. We think that actually we don't change, but we are changing too, you know, everything, the cycles of life, like we're always moving, we're always changing. And I think that is testimony to that, as you say, you know, that if somebody new came in or somebody left, it'd be very, very different, you know. And, you know, just funny when you're saying there, probably could go off on one, but just what you're even saying, like I think if we were saying we were going to do a performance, it would have taken on a completely different context. And then about, oh, I can't do that. This isn't, you know, I don't do that. Whereas we were seeing people drawing and making, whenever we had the beautiful big maps, Carol, that you had, and we were drawing like pathways on the map, you know, and curvature and corner. Beautiful work was happening, very free, very flowing, like the change happening. But also then when we turned it into, we looked at haikus and then turned it into duets. You know, women who maybe would never think they could move in that way. To see them move so freely with that
Yeah.
was just amazing.
Some of those women as well did their first movement sitting in a chair.
Yes.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's where they were at week 1.
Yeah.
And then
Amazing.
we had them out dancing in the street.
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like incredible. So even the change, you know, it was like a living, breathing embodiment of the project, the whole thing. You know, I think it had just observing the women as well, I think it had a profound effect on them. Not just, I'll just do this wee project and then I'll go on about my business. I think it actually affected their whole psyche in terms of the confidence, who they are,
Sure.
you know, friendships even. You know, it definitely, there was something very special, but the words, John Paul's words, formed the foundations of that, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and something very beautiful emerged from all of that.
Yeah. And I think as well, John Paul spoke to that because of the movement, because of what he was observing with the movement.
Amazing.
So the movement is the embodiment, and the embodiment of, you know, conflict is it either clenches our bodies to make us freeze, you know, where we just can't respond or we don't know what to do, or once we start to move, you know, we can't breathe without moving. So we start to breathe, and then that starts to free us up, you know, and freeing us up, then that leads way to other avenues or other options or other things that we hadn't thought about, or our imagination as well, which is beyond where we are right now. Our imagination, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Anything can happen.
Yeah.
You know, playing with a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And imagination links, I think, as well with restoring, with retelling a story, reimagining a story, seeing it from that different perspective. What does it look like from over there? What does it look like through a different lens? And there's real transformative power within that. That is, gosh, if we could inject that into peace building, wouldn't that just be amazing? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of thinking as well about the threshold. You know, and the threshold of an art space, or the threshold of a peace building space. You know, if a community, if they come to the line that is the threshold, and if they're feeling nervous about change or what might be ahead of them, and thinking, do we cross that threshold? I think in peace building, very often there can be an inclination to pull back from the threshold and just to slip back into something that is familiar, in opposed to, you know, going on the other, stepping into the other space. And I think that that was very evident in this process that was creative. They discovered what would have happened if they hadn't have stepped over the threshold. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of that lost love that wouldn't have happened had they not have taken the steps, literally. But, you know, and I see a parallel there too with peace building, to be brave and to be brilliant and to have courage and be curious. And the collective thing is, you don't do it on your own. We do it together.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
And from doing stuff on our own through COVID, being on our own, I didn't mean to always talk about it, but I definitely had a big impact on this group. But to be so isolated and on your own, then to invite people, we are sociable beings by nature, by, you know, but actually then to step outside of that then and come into a group again, even that, you know, regardless of what's being done, you're asking people to join a group that they've never been a part of before, to come out of their homes again and come into a new space with new people. Even that, just even the sense of stepping over the threshold, coming into that room before spring even.
Massive, yeah.
You know, so there's so much unpacking in the project. It's really quite extraordinary, I think, in terms of all of that.
Yeah.
You know.
So the later steps of the process, well, I guess for us now on this particular run of it, we're tying things up, and it did feel very much that it was coming to a milestone. It was coming to an end in some ways, but then in other ways it feels completely unresolved, and we could take avenues of John Paul's words and just go on in loads of different directions.
Yes.
And even the initial kind of little phrase of inhale, exhale, opposites, try doing both. You could do a whole 10 weeks just
Yes.
that little phrase,
Amazing.
So there are loads of kind of other things that could be done. And I suppose in different contexts might be done differently. I think now that we've got this wee group as well of women who are brave as lions.
Yes.
And now we've got their phone numbers. We know where they live. And we're coming after them. So it would be lovely to do other things with,
Definitely.
to grow this.
Yeah. I think it was a natural. I think that, the 10 weeks that I think it would be, it had to end, and it was important to have an ending and closure on that.
Yeah.
So I think whatever happens will be like a rebirth of something else, or growth in another sense.
Yeah.
It definitely will. It will take on a different form, 100%. And I think it definitely has opportunity elsewhere, as you say, too. In a different context. Maybe as in one-off workshops. It is a different, more like the hybrid event. I just think there's definitely more scope for exploration and play.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, like even just that one line, even Lisa's like, come alive, stay alive, keep alive. Even that, my word, how amazing would be just even to explore those. And that can be done in a day session, like there's loads of things. It's lovely. And again, very grateful to John Paul for allowing us to explore his words in that way, because that's brave as well. My word, gee, I don't know what we could be doing.
No, yeah,
I know.
yeah.
So it's been brilliant.
Yeah,
It really has. Truthfully, brilliant.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you want to.
No, I think we're good. I think that's, I suppose, our ponderings, on the Project Breathe, and it's been lovely to share it with everybody.
Community Arts Partnership would like to thank Belfast City Council and the Community Relations Council for their financial funding support for this programme to take place. Without it, we would not have been able to have had this experience. So we are very grateful